Our stories may be different, but our narrative and our life's goal is the same: to find our true inner potential and that authentic happiness that somehow got lost along the way in this human journey. In this episode today, I'll give you 5 practical tips derived from the science of positive psychology and ancient wisdom that'll help you discover how to get to your inner potential. So join me on this journey. Today's session is going to be slightly different. There is no book reading because this book has been in writing for a very long time. From the day I was born to this day. If I had to title this book today, it'll be called How to Discover Your Own Potential, how to discover your inner potential, your inner light, the extent of the power that lies within. Before we even get to that question of how do we get there, how do we unearth that potential, the real question we have to ask ourselves is, how did we get here? So I'm going to take you through the journey of my understanding on how we got here. And this came in a meditation. This is my truth. It may not be your truth, but hopefully some of it will speak to you. That's the whole hope here, right? So I do transcendental meditation. I've been doing it for 7 or 8 years. And those of you who are familiar with it, there is a mantra you recite, and then your brain goes as it's supposed to do. It starts thinking other thoughts, and you're then innocently supposed to bring yourself back to the mantra. Now, a lot of times these thoughts that you're supposed to observe go from right to left. And you know how on Times Square you can see the news flashing by? That's kind of how I used to see my thoughts and observe them. And you're supposed to observe them non-judgmentally. Very difficult to do, easy to say. Regardless, in this particular meditation, the thoughts were not moving from right to left. They were circling around me and had formed this incredible amount of an envelope, and there was nothing but darkness inside, and I found myself suffocated. All that meant was I needed some answers, and I needed to get out of there. And this is what came to me after I finished the meditation, and that's what I'm about to tell you. How did I get here? How did I get into this darkness? And where is my true potential hiding? So before we answer how to access your true potential, let's figure out how we got here in the first place. Here's my theory. So, this is the point of birth. We are born out of our mother's womb. Some people tell us it's the most traumatic journey a human being goes through. And for 9 months, we were meditating in our mother's womb, secure from the world, muffled sounds. We didn't even have to breathe. Food came in automatically, and we actually were literally living the present moment. We were connected with the divine. I believe that truly. And when we come out and our umbilical cord is cut, we start to cry. And I believe we cry not because strange lights and wind and sounds hit us. That also perhaps is true. But I believe we cry, if you could ask the child, is because our connection with the divine is broken, our mother. And that begins the process of creating layers around our true light. So the birth is where our inner potential lay. This is like the seed that had incredible potential in itself, that if it was allowed to grow uninterrupted, just given the right nutrition, the right water, the right earth, the right preparation, it could blossom into an amazing shrub or a tree bearing flowers and fruits and whatever comes that's supposed to come through its true potential. But if it's pruned along the way, if it's given a shape that its gardeners want, a well-meaning gardener, because the gardener himself or herself was pruned the same way, then this tree turns out to be something different. So the next phase after birth is what I'm going to call conditioning. Conditioning, which is essentially the concept of nurture. This is a very, very important layer of development. So let me give you an example of what's going on here. Freud talked about id, ego and superego when you're a baby. When you're a child, up to the age of 3, you don't apparently have a sense of self. That's why a child can run around naked on the street without a care in the world. And if we try to do that as an adult, you know what's going to happen, right? You'll probably get stoned, or at least police is going to be called to take you in. So somewhere along the way, we lose our innocence, our light, our connection with the divine, our power, our resilience, our engagement with life. Have you ever seen a child cry half-heartedly or laugh half-heartedly? When they cry, they cry. When they laugh, they laugh. When they play. When they eat. Spaghetti and tomato sauce all over their face and all over the high chair, right? They don't care. They are completely engaged in the moment. That innocence somewhere along the way gets lost. So the concept of id, immediate satisfaction, baby cries, you give the baby milk, and the child is happy. And as we grow up, the same kind of immediate satisfaction changes its shape and form. We get rattles, then we get books, then we get dresses, and life goes on. We are told that if you want to be happy, do this. If you want to be unhappy, don't do that. So, if, for example, you're in middle school, my daughters tell me that was perhaps the most difficult time in their school life. In that time period, children can be really mean to each other. What they don't realize is that they're creating this conditioning that starts right after birth, but continues to progress. And it creates our belief systems about who we are. We begin to identify with something that we may not be, especially if this conditioning process involves things like adverse childhood experiences, bullying, sexual abuse, physical abuse, watching domestic abuse at home, especially your mother getting hit, drug abuse at home, incarceration of a parent, suicide like I witnessed of my father. Now I was 23, but still it had a massive impact on my life. Whenever those events occur, they are labeled under something called adverse childhood experiences. They also happen in our adulthood, like COVID-19, like losing a job, getting terminated, divorce. Many of those things occur. Jack Mesereau has written extensively on something called transformational learning. He calls these events disorienting dilemmas. Disorienting dilemmas that shape our belief systems. Now, these disorienting dilemmas actually can be pretty good too, and we'll touch on that in a minute. But most of the time, in that environment that I just talked about of a child not having the perfect childhood, I went through sexual abuse when I was 11 or 12. We witnessed a lot of domestic abuse at home. There was a lot of financial struggle. And then my dad committed suicide. That shaped my entire adult life. And the study of ACE that was done in California will tell you that those years, if you have 4 or more ACEs in your life, can shave up to 20 years out of your life. You're more prone to risky sexual behavior. You're more prone to drug use and abuse. You're more prone to suicidal ideation. You're more prone to depression and anxiety, to liver disease, to cardiovascular disease, to smoking. All of the various illnesses that we think about of the mind and the body are now somehow connected to our childhood. So this phase of conditioning is one of the most important phases of our life. It brings about our belief systems. These belief systems that get challenged by sometimes these disorienting dilemmas, and at times these disorienting dilemmas tell us, I'm not good enough. And at times they make us challenge our identity and ask the question, is this who I am? Is this who I really want to be? Then as these belief systems develop, they create the next layer, which is where we spend a lot of our time, called thoughts. Process of evolution gave us a brain whose job is to think, mostly to protect ourselves from danger and for self-preservation. But when these belief systems start to create thoughts that are negative in nature or positive in nature, they shape the next layer after that, which are our actions. Now, the interesting discovery that came to me was this is where I was stuck, remember, in that meditation. That's the circling, the dark circle I was getting suffocated by, because this light, this inner potential, not only was covered by a lot of my personal child aces, but beyond that, not fitting in, coming to the US, not being able to speak the language the way people spoke, not being able to make them laugh, not being able to carry forth a career that I wanted, not being able to generate enough money to support my family, all of those things, I am not good enough. And you have this need for validation, which is very important to survive as a human being. But when it becomes an addiction, it becomes a problem, like it became for me. Validation became my addiction because my thoughts were, I am not good enough. And a lot of us go through that. And when you have the confidence that you are good enough, when you get to that point, you know that you've cracked this layer. You know that you've reached your inner potential and that it's only a matter of time that you actually find your purpose. That's the exciting part of this life's journey, is that that possibility stays there, always present inside, that we can crack through this layer and find that inner light. But these thoughts, especially in events like COVID-19, become negative downward spirals that take us in a place where we don't want to be. And from these thoughts, we create actions. In fact, there is a loop that I like to call TEA, or just T. Thoughts create emotions, emotions create actions. And here's the part, if things are not working right for you, like they weren't for me, is that thoughts create emotions that are not conducive to your psychological or physiological health. And they make you act in certain ways that are not good for you. The ACE study proves that we engage in actions that are harmful to us with us knowing that they are harmful to us. Smoking, as an example, or abuse of drugs, as an example, we know that they're bad for us, and yet we engage in them because we are in this loop of thoughts, emotions, and actions. Actions create more thoughts, which create more emotions, they create more actions. We get stuck in this T loop. How do you break out of that T loop to get to your inner potential is what we're going to answer. Okay, so let's rename these, or at least classify these layers in some sort of semblance of order. So we have birth, that makes sense. Then we have conditioning, that makes sense. I like to call this thought process maturation phase, where we are becoming mature in our belief of our identity, and the thoughts that we get confirm, good or bad or worse, who we are. And the rest, or the action layer here, is what I'm going to call results. So you have birth, conditioning, maturation, and results. Now, all of this is in the quest for what? Happiness. As Viktor Frankl said, we are not in search or pursuit of happiness. We're in pursuit of a reason to be happy. That reason is what's eluding us, and that reason is hidden in this layer, covered by beliefs, then thoughts, and finally these actions. We're going to build an acronym, like we normally do, to help us memorize, understand what are some of the ways we can break through that shell of our belief systems, of our thoughts and the T loop, the thoughts, emotions, actions loop, to get to our true potential. So the S stands for spirituality. Now this can come in the form of prayer, meditation, a walk in the woods, watching the sunset, feeling the breeze on your face, raising your hands up to the higher power, sitting down in meditation and connecting with your inner self, writing, expressing yourself, painting, whatever your way is to connect with something bigger than yourself is spirituality. There's a lot of science behind prayer and how it actually helps us lose the fear of death. What the science tells us is prayer and meditation creates incredible, wonderful juices in our body that are good for us. They make us feel good. They shift our mood. They bring us hope. They bring us courage. They bring us strength. They bring us resilience. That's already recorded in history of science. The second is engagement. Now, this is not any kind of engagement that is like sitting down and writing something, but this is what Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi calls flow. It's a state of consciousness in which you lose the sense of time. More importantly, you lose the sense of ego. Remember the child. Remember Sigmund Freud. Up to the age of 3, a child doesn't have a sense of self or a sense of ego. A child running naked on the streets. That's the innocence they have. That's the resilience. That's the openness to life they have. So engagement is openness to life in a way where you lose your sense of self. If you watch Michael Jordan play, he puts his tongue out when he's in flow. If you watch Yo-Yo Ma play the cello, you'll see his eyes are closed and he's gone somewhere. If you watch anybody who is in the state of flow, they are in a place where they have no sense of time. That is engagement that I'm talking about. The R is resilience. This resilience is a factor in our well-being that is also well documented in the annals of science. This is a point at which the life tells you you're going to break down and you still get up and you keep moving. You get thrown in the dust, you get up, you dust things off and you move on. Very hard to do. This resilience has been captured in several ways. Grit, as Angela Duckworth calls it, in her book of the same name, Grit, which is about passion and practice and preparedness, but it's a concept that tells you that in order for you to get to your inner potential, resilience is necessary. Malcolm Gladwell's book called Outliers, he talks about the 10,000 hour rule. So people like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and Elon Musk, they had to spend more than 10,000 hours to get to where they are. Preparation is considered to be one of the biggest aspects of getting to where you need to get to. So resilience doesn't come on its own. In order to break through that crack where the light can start to come out and you can find your true potential, passion and preparation and practice have to come together. Otherwise, it's very hard to get to that particular aspect. The next one, V, is virtuosity. What I mean by that is really two things: right action and right thought. Now, these are two of the 8 paths that call the Noble Eightfold Path in Buddhism: right thought and right action. You can grab any book. Thich Nhat Hanh has written about the heart of the teachings of Buddha, in which you can understand what right thought and right action means. But it really means living your life in a way that's coherent with your own self, in harmony with you, so that when you in fact do something, you feel like you're connected with it. You don't feel any pang, you don't get anything wrong in your gut, you don't really get any feeling that this is not right. It's completely aligned with who you are. This is something that is incredibly important for you to have peace inside, because unless you settle this water down, those waves in a pond that are always there are not going to let you see your image. If you are in front of a still lake and you put your face above it, you can see your reflection clearly. You throw a pebble in it and there's waves, your reflection is muddled. To find that peace, Buddhism will tell you, follow the Eightfold Path. There's the 10 Commandments. There's all kinds of ways you can get there. The point is, all actions and all thoughts, in order to break that T loop, the thoughts, emotions, action loop, if it isn't positive, you have to engage in actions, you have to engage in thoughts that are in harmony with who you are. And the final E is empathy. Empathy is different than sympathy. It is in fact a concept that is different than compassion. It is between sympathy and compassion. Sympathy is care and concern for others. In empathy, you're connected at the feeling and the perspective level. You are so engaged with the person who you are listening to that you can feel what they're feeling and you know their perspective. You've kind of put yourself in their shoes, to use a cliche that we normally use. That empathic behavior is one of the keys that opens up your heart to compassion. And when you have compassion coming out and oozing out, that's what opens up your inner light. If you go to any religious scriptures, all of the accomplished souls, the enlightened souls have told us compassion is the key to finding your purpose. You know, when Jesus was being crucified and people were sifting through his stuff and they were taking his things away, what did he say? Forgive them, Lord, because they know not what they do. Forgiveness and compassion for those who are hurting you. There are other examples. We can't be Jesus, but we can embody the same kind of godlike qualities of humility, of compassion, of empathy, of service that opens up the light. The people who were enlightened, they operate exactly in a different way than we do. And we'll go back for the final time to that chart where we started. We go from actions sometimes into our thoughts, and that helps us challenge our belief systems through disorienting dilemmas. And that at times creates a crack between our belief layer and our birth layer, our conditioning layer and our birth layer, and light comes out of here, and we somehow know what our purpose is. Enlightened souls start here because they've gone past these stages. They know that there's no point here. They start here because their light is emanating directly from inside out. In order for you to get there, many Bodhisattvas got there. Bodhisattvas were followers of Buddha. And what did Buddha tell them? Apodipo bhava. You are your own light. These are some of the last words he left Ananda, his disciple of 45 years. He was his cousin who was lamenting the loss of Buddha and said to Buddha, what am I going to do when you're gone? And Buddha said, you are your own light. You don't need me. You can find that light. In fact, there's a wonderful story, and I have actually held this particular gland that came from a deer. It sounds pretty cruel right now because a deer must have been killed for that gland to come out. It is called kasturi in India, and the deer can smell it, and it doesn't know where this amazing, beautiful fragrance is coming from. It smells amazing and runs all around in the forest trying to find it, not knowing all along that that fragrance was inside him or her. That's how we are. Looking outside, running around, trying to find our fragrance when that lives inside of us. In one of the previous episodes, we talked about your signature strengths, which is the best of you. And you can go to viacharacter.org, take a 7 to 8 minute survey, and it'll spit out your top 5 signature strengths. That is a scientifically tested method of what's the best of you. If you use those character strengths, 2, 3, 5 of them, you will be a lot better equipped to get to your inner light than most others who don't know what their strengths are. So take that survey, find out what your signature strengths are, and then here's the prompt. I'm going to read it for you. I now know my signature strengths. I will use the serve model to unearth my true potential. So the prompt is here for you to follow. If none of the serve aspects, the acronym speaks to you, spirituality, engagement, resilience, virtuosity, and empathy, then find whatever speaks to you. The idea is to break through these layers, to get out of the T loop and get to your inner potential. That's how I got there. Hope this is helpful to you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us today. Before you go, I'd like to tell you about 2 important things. First, a little bit about Karuna, and second, how you can be part of this journey with us. At Karuna, our mission is threefold. First, to support and empower youth and women who've suffered unspeakable abuse, neglect, abandonment, trafficking, and all of the traumas that life brings their way, unfortunately. Second, to support early childhood education in disadvantaged communities to help break the cycle of vicious poverty and abuse. And third, to fund well-being research through our esteemed scientific advisory board in areas that are disadvantaged. You can join us in one of 5 ways. They are listed on our website. So subscribe to this channel and subscribe to this website. You may volunteer with us, you can contribute, you can sponsor, you can be part of this journey to unleash compassion and make this world a happier place. Thank you.